Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast, Thursday, February 10th, 2022. Hot off the presses right now, TigerIllustrated.com. Some context to Mike Reed's recent 2 salary bumps. Heck, he might be getting another at this rate, pursued by 2 of the big dogs recently, and then more recently, sounds like pursued by the dogs in Athens, Georgia. Don't think he's going anywhere, but for more on that, and of course, plenty of recruiting intel and insight, go to TigerIllustrated.com. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. That's P-A-R-H-A-M law.com. Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union? If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Okay, to our guest, our national championship winning guest, coolest coach on Clemson's campus, in my opinion. Wait, did I say that out loud? Here is Clemson soccer coach Mike Noonan. All right, joined by Mike Noonan. And Mike, I hate it that I don't cover soccer, but one of the best part, or the best part, of not covering Clemson soccer is I get to be a fan. I get to pull for you, and super happy for you and your family. Belated congratulations, I guess I should say. How you doing?
No, I'm doing good. It's busy time. You know, there's all the ramifications and aftermath of winning the national championship, but we're focusing right now, and tomorrow we start our 20-hour week for the springtime, and the team is back and excited and in training, and recruiting's going on. So we're it's all happening. But it feels really good. I mean, Clemson is a fantastic place if you're going to win a national championship.
So it's been almost 2 months. What's been if another coach were to say, man, what is it like when you finally win one? What's the first thing that would come to your mind, just sort of maybe just emotionally?
Yeah, processing that emotion is one thing, particularly when you've been at it as long as I have, Larry, and pursuing a worthy goal is something, and that's always been the dream, not necessarily the goal. I mean, the goal is to develop young men and get them graduated and, do great things in their lives. But the dream is always to win the national championship. And we've been close here at Clemson. I've been close at Brown. But when it finally happened, the best part about it, and I think everybody will say this, is that the look on my daughter's and my wife's face was probably the most, the players and the joy that they had in their families, but just being able to experience, what they've had to go through with me through their entire lives, and then sitting on the field and carry and just, you pinch yourself. The smiles were amazing, and that's all the way around. But to see Debbie and the girls, the way that they were, and by the time they get back here to Clemson, and then I got home at about 3:00 in the morning, they were watching the rerun of the game, and they're still up. We were up until 5. It was amazing from a family standpoint. Is
the biggest part of that just the the sacrifices that have been made over the years. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's it. And you know, coming and the big sacrifice actually is, you know, Debbie and I are from New England, and most of my career was spent in New England except for when I was playing, and you know, to come down to Clemson and to trust the fact that we were going to create a whole new life down here and a whole new environment, and you know, having the faith that this was gonna turn out well, and it has. It's been a wonderful project, not just winning the national championship, but being at Clemson and working in the athletic department, and you know, all the players and staff that have been here over the 12 years. It's been very, very gratifying. And you know, when you take the risk to do something out of your comfort zone, and moving down here was that. It's not easy, and I think in particular for the wives and the kids. I mean, when we came down here, Kaylee was 7, and she still has some New England in her, but Megan was 3, and she's all Southern now. So it's it's life shaping, and to finally reach that pinnacle was. It was very gratifying for our family, but also for all the guys and their families and Clemson. And that's the thing, is that, you know, it's something that's embraced here at Clemson. And that's probably the biggest thing that I didn't quite understand. You know, I watched Dabo win it twice. I wasn't here when Larry won it with golf, and obviously when Coach Ebe won his too. But to see the magnitude of the, you know, what it means to the community is just is something special.
Anytime I guess a coach achieves at a high level, it's always fascinating to go back and look at the junctures that led to him arriving at that place. Sort of, and you've just alluded several times to the decision to leave your comfort zone and to come down here. You know, Dabo's story is obviously fascinating, how he got here. You know, he was in commercial real estate for almost 2 years. He was out of coaching, and then Tommy Bowden is on the hot seat and has to fill a spot, and convinces Dabo to come here, and everybody knows what's happened since. Can we go dig into, I mean, you were at Brown for 15 years. Obviously, you'd never been down here. I'm just curious, like the first phone call you got from Clemson, and just as you think back to those sort of formative developments in getting you down here, what are the sort of landmarks that stick out in your mind in that process?
Well, it was the first call came in the midst of the season. I had a really, really good team at Brown the year everything went down, and Kyle Young called me in September, and you know, they had interim coach at that time, Phil Heinsohn, and said that they were going to have a national search, and would I be interested in the position? And I said, right now, no, because I'm in the midst of my season, and I'm going to concentrate on the team that I have here. But at the end of the season, if you're going to wait that long, I would consider talking to you and potential movement. I had grown frustrated, Larry, with the Ivy League rules. I love Brown. It was it's an awesome place. But the frustration was that, you know, we only had 10 days to practice in the spring, and you know, only got to play 2 out-of-season games. So we would coach for 3 months, and there was 9 months of camps, clinics, and conventions. And that was, you know, that had worn on me over 15 years. And the impact that the best part of coaching for me is being on the field with players and watching the development. And although we were progressing and developing good players in the game, it had gotten frustrating at how limited those were. So I was ready for a change at the time, and I had discussed it with Deb, and she understood my frustration. And, you know, we talked about the kids being young, and so Kyle waited, and then, and graciously, when we were eliminated from the NCAA tournament in November, called again and, asked me if I would entertain coming down for an interview. I think I was one of 4 or 5 people. And I'll never forget coming down here, and the interview was set up with Kyle Young, Terry Don Phillips, and Bill DeAndre. And I walked in, and they shook my hands, and all of them are linemen and football players, and their hand envelopes up to my wrist, every one of them, right? And I'm going, whoa. And Terry Don sits down, and in his way, he looks at me and he goes, Mike, everybody sitting on this side of the table knows nothing about soccer.
You mispronounced it, Mike. It's actually, it's Mac.
Mac, yeah. And he said, that's why you're here. He said, we know a whole lot about Clemson, and that's why we're here. And at that point, I was kind of charmed. I was like, this is going to be pretty cool, because, these people can teach me something and I can teach them something. And that was just the way it was. And there was an opening at Syracuse University at the same time. And I had interviewed for that. And the day before I was offered the Clemson job, I was offered the Syracuse job. And I looked at Debbie and she said to me, I said to her, well, which orange do you like better? And I thought for sure she was going to say Syracuse, because at that time they were in the Big East. Her family's from the Providence area, and we'd be able to stay up in, New England. We had a home in Vermont that we really enjoyed. And we came down to Clemson, visited Clemson, and visited Syracuse. And on the way home from both trips, I said, okay, which orange is going to be? And she goes, I picked brown. And I said, that's not a choice. And I was really, really surprised when she said Clemson. And it was the, she felt really comfortable. As you know, Larry, our kids went to Montessori school with your kids, and that was a big factor. But it was just the way the community embraced us when we were here for our visit, and it just felt comfortable and warm. And that Deb is not one that changes. It deals with change real well all the time. And that made her feel, and when she said that to me, I was like, okay, because Clemson was always my choice, but it wasn't going to be my decision. It was going to be a joint decision. And it was really 60-40 to whether Debbie was going to feel comfortable coming down. So that was that. And then I got here about a week on the job, and I had left our associate head coach, Phil Jones, who's been with me since, and came from Brown with me. It's been a wonderful part of our staff and our family. And I had to go back up and tie up things at Brown. And he called me on the phone 2 days later, and he said, Mike, there's a threat it might snow tomorrow, and they won't let us practice. And we were so bad at the time. I mean, we couldn't afford not to practice. I said, what do you mean there's a threat of snow? He goes, yeah, they won't let me practice. So I called Kyle on the phone. I said, Kyle, what do you mean you won't let him practice? It's not snowing. It might snow. And he explained to me about the roads and everything else. That's where the difference came through, and we didn't get to practice that day. And in that, now I realize, but ever since then, the recruiting pitch is we have 300 days of sunshine and we're playing in the middle of the winter outdoors, and that has helped a great deal. Attract really, really good players here at Clemson.
Who else embraced you down here when y'all came to visit? Who are some of the other folks who just sort of gave you that good feeling?
Well, it was pretty much the whole athletic department, everybody I met. Dr. Jackson, Lorella Jackson, who she and her husband Chris Ip were who was the swim coach at the time. They had dinner with us, and they were fantastic. They had been here quite a long time, and really enjoyed it. And Billy D was, he was in his own special way was someone that really sold the idea that you could accomplish something great here. Kyle Young has been a staple in our lives since he's been here, and just a very steady influence. I remember this is great. It's like we were I think I was in Dabo's old office. I think that was my first office when he was the wide receivers coach. And right across the hallway in McFadden was a life-size picture of Kyle Young in his playing days playing. And it was Kyle with no neck, and he was massive, right? And he's looking at us every day, and I'm going like, I'm not going to screw with this guy. This is my boss. I'm not screwing with this guy. But that stared at us every day. But when you get to know Kyle and understand, his wholesome way about him, it's just it's completely different than what you see in between the lines, I think. And he's been just so super to us. And then the one who really and I was trying to impress her, and I don't think she ever tried to impress me, but she was wonderful, with Julie Ibrahim, who we met at a Christmas pageant at a Montessori school where her granddaughter was, and Kelly was there, and she left after her granddaughter's performance, and I chased her in the lobby, and I introduced myself, and I let her know that we were here to honor her late husband's legacy and to add to it. And I think she was touched by that, and ever since then, she understands what it's like being a coach's wife, and she has looked out for Debbie and for the girls ever since, because she knows what it takes, and has been superb and just wonderful. The other person who really took hold for us is a couple of people. Pierce Torme, who Clemson Hall of Fame, national champion, and runs the CISA program in Greenville. I had a guy who I was very close to in the game, or he used to run Umbro here in Spartanburg, and he called me on the phone. He said, if you need to know anything about Clemson, you need to get in touch with Pierce Torme. And so I called Pierce on Christmas Eve, and he was on his way to Mass, and he took the time to just really drill me down on what the Clemson soccer program was and where it was at. And the one thing about Pierce is that he's very, very giving. His heart's huge, and but he's not gonna BS you. He's gonna tell you the truth, and that was really, really helpful. And then since we've been here, and really when I got here, there was some turmoil in the program with the past head coach, and obviously that's many times the way that an opening happens. And Dr. Milt Lauder had dealt with the aftermath of that, and Mike Potempa, who was an assistant coach here and who I tried to retain, but he had already accepted a position down in Florida and has done great things then and since, particularly assisting us with our recruiting, told me that I should get in touch with Dr. Lauder. And Milt has become a big part of our lives and a big part of our program. And now, what he does with his group for the athletic department here is sensational. So that's continued to grow, and that's been great. So, and there are many, many others, Larry. I mean, I could reminisce about this stuff all day.
I am totally uninformed about the history of Syracuse soccer. Objectively, where are they traditionally compared to Clemson in terms of history, success, and all that? What's the better job objectively, I guess?
Yeah, it was Clemson was the better job because playing in the ACC is, it's the best soccer conference in the country. And Syracuse was in the same place in the Big East as Clemson was in the ACC. And I wasn't, it was going to be a rebuild at both programs. But one of the deciding factors to come to Clemson was not just the ACC, and that Debbie said this, but it was the way that Terry Don approached hiring me. Up in Syracuse, they told me that I could clean house. Didn't have to honor any of the scholarships, start from scratch, and have a blank canvas, and do what I needed to do in order for them to become successful, and they were going to support me. Terry Don took a different approach, and it was more an educational approach. He said, Mike, we're going to give you time. We're going to give you a long-term contract, but I'm asking you, the kids that are on the team right now, they've been through a lot. And he said, I don't know soccer, but he said, these kids have been through a lot. He goes, please, if we've made mistakes in the athletic department, retain these kids and help them continue to grow or help them go someplace else. And you don't have to win right away here. You just need to run the programs the way that you see fit, and we're going to let you do that. But be mindful of the guys who've been through a lot here. And, again, you hear that type of leadership, and that's the type of people I want to work for.
Would some coaches interviewing for a job, when they hear the three most important superiors, speaking of Terry Don, Billy D, and Kyle Young, if they heard all three of those guys unanimously say, yeah, we don't know jack squat about what you coach, would some people be turned off by that?
Yeah, I think one or two of the candidates might have been. But, I saw it as an opportunity and a way to, educate as long as I could get them invested in what we were trying to do. And that was building a culture, and that doesn't make a difference what the sport is. It's what you're trying to do in the environment that you're trying to surround yourself with. And the other thing that was really impressive to me too, and it was a fantastic signal at the beginning, was I sent Jim Barker a note after I was hired, and I thanked him for the opportunity, and I told him that I would be introduced. The following day I was flying down, I was going to be introduced as a coach, and Jim Barker was actually at the press conference and welcomed me. And I thought, darn, the president of the whole university's here for a soccer coach. That's pretty cool. So there were some really good signs that the athletic department and the university was going to embrace the tradition, and there was a tradition left behind by Coach Ebe, and it's my goal to build that back up. And you got to remember, Larry, by my age, I was playing and in college when Clemson was great. Mm-hmm. And they were one of the four programs in the country that, everybody looked at as the best. And my goal when I got here was to bring that back and have that consistency where people look at the program. And so, that's a model program for collegiate soccer.
What was the scholarship situation, or lack thereof, at Brown?
Well, the Ivy League doesn't have athletic scholarships.
None. Zero.
Yeah, zero. So they have financial aid based upon need, but their endowment provides a great deal of need, and to qualify for aid is I won't say it's relatively easy, but it's most of my players were on some form of financial aid. And then the selling point of Brown was what happens once you graduate and where your starting salary was. And I had statistics that were showing, it starts here and then within 5 years it goes to here. So if you turn down that scholarship on the backside, look how much it's going to pay you back. That was the recruiting pitch of Brown. But getting 9.9 scholarships was something that I was like, this is going to be great. You got to understand the perception of Clemson in New England and up north is that it's a private school, right? And sometimes you assume things, and I mistakenly assumed that I was going to get the 9.9 scholarships and need-based financial aid, and I was going to kill it. My first recruit was a guy named Fanwell Kavita, who was all, ACC and still playing professionally, but he was a Congolese refugee living in Salt Lake City, one of 6 kids. His dad was a cab driver making less than $25,000 a year. And I'm going, oh, this is perfect. I'm not going to have to spend a dime of scholarship money on him. And I walked in and I told Kyle about Fanwell and, the player he was and this, that, and the other thing. And I told him my plan about getting financial aid for him. And Kyle looked at me and he said, Mike, there is no need-based financial aid here at Clemson. We told you have your 9.9 scholarships.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And that was the big shock to me. And it's not Terry Don or Kyle's fault or Billy D's. I didn't ask the right questions, and I didn't understand. I didn't do my research well enough to understand that Clemson University was a state university, and that their resources and pools of resources weren't going to be the same. But after I licked my wounds a little bit, I wasn't real happy, to be honest with you, Larry. But I realized, hey, Harvard's endowment was greater than Brown's, and they were getting better financial aid packages at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton than I was getting at Brown. So we were going to go to work, and we were going to use what we had and find ways to be successful, and not worry about what we didn't have, but worry about what we did.
Here in 2022, the need-based realm, scholarship realm, is an issue. I know with baseball, I guess for y'all too, because you have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of it is places like Vanderbilt and North Carolina, Virginia, with big endowments, are able to apply a lot of money toward that need-based sort of criteria. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, and they also have merit-based aid. We have some merit-based aid here academically, but it's, you have to have Ivy League credentials in order to qualify for it. But yes, that's the baseball world. But in the soccer world, you got to think Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Syracuse, Boston College, Virginia, North Carolina, right? And it's the same with baseball, right? Within the conference. So yeah, that's one of the challenges. But Clemson handles it well. We have resources that those schools don't have to build facilities, to create programs that support our student athletes like no other place in the country. And we make up for it in those areas and work really hard. But, when I'm asked the number one thing that we need in our equivalency sports, whether it's President Clemens asking me, Dan Radakovich, or now Graham Neff and Kyle, it's need-based financial aid to compete, or compete consistently. Right. So that's, but it's not a complaint. It's just something that we need to continue to fundraise until we get to the point where we can offer that.
How about old Terry Don? His hire of Dabo was roundly scoffed at for years. I think, I don't know this, but people say that when he hired you, people were like, who? And where'd he come from? That was criticized early on. What do you think about his touch in making hires that aren't obvious at the time, I guess, that aren't considered slam dunks at the time? Obviously, Dabo being much less of a slam dunk than you, given his lack of a track record, lack of experience. But what was it about Terry Don that you think made that his sweet spot?
Yeah. Well, let's also not forget Brad Brownell, who came 2 weeks after I did and is now the leading winning basketball coach ever at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So those are three coaches that Terry Don hired within a year. I think what it is that Terry Don was a coach. And he was really, really wise, and he didn't listen to the noise, and he had his own voice in his head, that he had values that he, I think, espoused as a person that he wanted to see in coaches. And I think that, Dabo and myself had some of those similar qualities that he looked for, and that he understood what it was like being a coach. And many times now in these major athletic departments, you've got CEOs, not people who've been in between the white lines. I think Terry Don was a coach, and he understood the ups and the downs, and what can happen as you're building, a culture, and how to continue to lack of a better word, protect coaches sometimes from the vagaries that the fans or popular opinion might put out there. And he was, when I was working for Terry Don, I didn't quite understand him. In the last couple of years, boy, I tell you what he did and I call him this, he's a humanist, right? He understands what it's like to be human and to have faults and to allow those things to go on and to care about other people. And I think he was looking for that when he was hiring coaches. And obviously he did a pretty good job.
I'll never forget, and I was just interviewing Billy D a few weeks ago, and he brought this up. You were here, November 2010, when they lose to South Carolina at home. They had lost back-to-back to South Carolina for the first time, I think, since early 70s. And so Dabo's second full season, of course, people are howling that he's not cut out to do the job. And Billy D pointed out to me, I think Dabo has shared this anecdote, but I didn't know that Billy D was a part of it too. But right after that game, Terry Don walks up to Billy D and says, "Meet me in Dabo's office in 20 minutes or whatever." And Billy D's first thought was, wow, he's about to fire Dabo. And so they end up in the office with Dabo, and Dabo thought he was getting fired too. And that's when Terry Don said, I've never believed in you more than I do now, and your vision and your abilities and all that. And I think that's sort of what you were getting at when you talked about not listening to the noise and sort of the empowering coaches with that sort of human belief, and sort of investing in them relationship-wise.
Yeah, without question. I was here, and that was one of my first experiences here. I just arrived, and it was a witch hunt like I've never seen anything in my life. And they couldn't get Dabo because he was new, right? And he had been to the ACC tournament. I think this was 2011 when they were under 500.
It was 10.
It was 10.
Yep.
Okay. And I think, there was bloodletting. I think Kevin Steele was let go.
That was a year later.
Okay.
This is when he fired Billy Napier and Andre
that's
Powell.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, and those guys have proven to be pretty good coaches. And I can remember it. And many people don't know this, but Jim Barker, I think, can recount this. As I sent President Barker a note because I read that they were interviewing all these people, and there was a big, review of what was going on, the presidential level, and Terry Don, and this, that, and the other thing. I wrote Jim Barker a note that said, hold your nerve, because you got a really, really good football coach and an even better AD. And, you know, they were interviewing people. Next thing I knew, his secretary wanted me to go meet with the president. And I had been here like 3 or 4 months. And he was great. And, you know, there are certain things that I think you have to do when you're in leadership positions. And I think President Barker was doing that at this time. But I just said, you know, that football, I've listened to him. I've watched him. I know I've been involved in coaching college for a long time. And we don't want to see that guy coaching Alabama in the next 4 or 5 years. And I let him know my opinion on Terry Don and why I came to Clemson. And that was really had to do mostly with Terry Don and the story I told you about, the way he wanted me to treat the players that were here. And I said, these type of people are hard to find. And he thanked me and, you know, did his review, and obviously great things came after that.
What was it that you saw and heard from Dabo in just a few months to give you the conviction to email or send a note to the president to say, hold your nerve?
Well, there are a couple of things. On Terry Don, that's the guy who just hired me. So he obviously had some trust in me, and I need to show some faith in him. And he's under the gun. But with Dabo, it was so easy to see because he was so genuine in what he was doing. And when when the team failed, is always the time you look at the character of a coach. And he never blamed the players. He never blamed his staff. He took responsibility for things, and put out solutions or things that he wanted to do or that he was going to do. He had a vision. And I listened to him, and I'm the soccer coach, and I just arrived and I'm going, I'm convinced this guy's going to do what he says he's going to do. Right? And that's what coaching is, and that's what leadership is. And given time, the rabid fans, I think there are a lot of people who are calling for his head who were in the stands when he won national championships 5 years later, 6 years later. Right. So, what goes on in a program is so very hard and that's why the kids are so courageous. I mean, they walk across that white line every day and they get judged by people who really don't know what their life is really all about and what goes on in their lives. And that's I'm not being judgmental of the fans because the Clemson fans are the best there are any place, but it's really hard for them to understand that. And they actually really can't. And what goes on in the coach's life and what goes on in the player's life as a student athlete. I've got a great story. I was on one of my first recruiting trips down in Georgia, and I was in Atlanta. It was a Sunday morning, and I was in a Starbucks, and I had my Clemson shirt on, the Tiger Paw on, and I'm standing in line. This really good-looking 6'3" man dressed in a Sunday suit looked at me and he goes, we had lost to NC State, I think, the day before, and NC State wasn't very good. And he looks at me and goes, what happened? and I looked at him and I go, what's this guy talking to me about? He's going, what happened yesterday? And I look back at him. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, recruit, right? He goes, those boys played awful yesterday. And I was like, oh my God, he's talking about the football game that happened yesterday. But I barely knew the result. I knew that we had lost. And I said to him, well, to be honest with you, I don't exactly know what happened, but I know that they're 18 to 22-year-old young men, and a lot of times they make mistakes.
Great answer.
So it is amazing, and it's the good and the bad, isn't it, Larry? Because the fans make the experience for our athletes and for our programs, right? There's no question about it. They make the experience what it is. They attract, but at the same time, you've got to take the other side of that, because they can be very, very critical, and they want to win as bad as anybody in the country here. And that's the cauldron that you're in, and that's what you accept when you come here to Clemson. And you've got to embrace that, or else it'll tear you up.
If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archambault. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. With football, with criticism of a football team, it can come in a Starbucks in Atlanta. It comes, newspaper articles, whatever, message boards, Twitter. I mean, it's such a big stage thing. In what ways, as the soccer coach at Clemson, do you not feel the pressure per se, but do you experience the criticism?
Well, if you come to Riggs, my wife sits on the other side of the field, up in the corner where nobody knows it's her, because she doesn't want to sit with all the fans and the parents and listen to how bad her husband is coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes with the territory, doesn't it? But it's self-induced pressure more on, and again, a great lesson I learned from Terry Don is if you've got values and you believe in those, and that's what you don't listen to the noise. Listen to the small group of people that you trust, my staff, a couple of the mentors that I've had in the game, and do what you need to do to again, live those values and have your team live those values. And man, there have been games that we've lost that I almost screwed up the Oregon State game out in the quarterfinals. We almost didn't get to carry to the College Cup because I made decisions that kind of went against my gut to start that game, and we were miserable and down a goal 25 minutes into the game. That happens in sport. Ask Michaela Schifrin. I mean,
yep.
Sport's a tough thing, and it is because you're being judged at every turn, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, but it's also the most exhilarating thing and the best thing in the world, and the great life lessons that you learn in such a great educational environment.
The opening of the Allen Reeves Center / Palace / Dabo Land attracted great fanfare, and I guess that was the winner of 17 right after their first national championship. A bit of a footnote was that it totally displaced the soccer practice arrangement over there, and Dabo has made mention of this I think even recently, I think it was after y'all won it. What was that like in the moment? Because I think I talked to you at points back then, and it's very difficult to go through from your chair. In hindsight, just looking back, maybe share what that was like, just from your perspective.
Yeah, well, actually, what happened is we had won the quarterfinal against Maryland at Riggs, and we're on our way to Kansas City to the College Cup, to the semifinals in 2015. And on Monday morning, we went out to practice, or it was Tuesday. We had the day off Monday. It was Tuesday, and they were boring holes in our practice field. There was heavy equipment. It wasn't there on the weekend. It appeared on the Monday, and they're boring holes in the practice fields. And they had left one field. There were two fields over there. They had left one field for us to practice on, but nobody thought about the fact that all this heavy machinery is making a lot of noise, and you really can't train properly with this going on. And I was hot. I was really hot because it was, I mean, can't you just wait a week? Let us get through our national championship run and start the following Monday. And I went into Kyle, and it was. And I don't know whether Kyle called Dabo or what, but it was explained to me that they had to start it that day so that it was ready for signing day 2 years later, and that was the deadline.
Wow, that was the logic behind it.
Yeah, and they had it. You know, it was contracted. That was the way it was. And to be honest with you, nobody expected us to be in the College Cup semifinal. They thought our season would be done by then.
Man.
And we had been underestimated, which never feels good. And then Dabo picked up the phone and called me on the phone, and he said, Mike, I know, you're probably pretty upset. But I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to promise you, that as a result of this building being built now, you're going to get a much, much better facility. And I'm going to help you get it. Huh. And again, like I told you, about my conversation when you asked me what was it about Dabo that makes him, I believed him, right? I said, okay, if this guy says it's going to happen, he's as genuine as the day's long. And Terry Donnan said the same thing. And Kyle reassured me. And so, again, like everything else, you deal with what you can do with what you have, not worry about what you don't have or what's been taken away. And, we went out, won the semifinal, and then unfortunately lost in the final. But seeing scenes of us, they had the Christmas party the night of the party, the night of the final, the athletic department Christmas party, and seeing the scenes and the pictures of, the football staff and the athletic department staff cheering us on, you just felt as though, this is just a really good place to be a part of. And, as much as, my first athletic director at Wheaton College told me this when I was, and I've never forgotten it, when I was thinking about taking the University of New Hampshire job. I was at Wheaton College, it was a Division III job. It was my first head coaching job. And I was head lacrosse coach, head soccer coach, director of club sports, and supervised the equipment room. And intramurals. And I was thinking about taking the University of New Hampshire job, which had come free and had been offered me, and all I was going to have to do was coach the soccer team. The old coach coached lacrosse and soccer, but they had separated the jobs. I was just going to have to coach the soccer team, and it was going from Division I to Division III with 2.2 scholarships, and I think they were going to pay me $23,000 or $27,000. And I went into Chad Yowell and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to take the job. And he looked at me and he said, I thought you might do that. And he goes, I know you've been frustrated here because your passion is soccer and you want to concentrate on soccer the entire time, and you're going to be able to do that up in New Hampshire. He goes, but I'm going to tell you something, Mike, for the rest of your career. You're going to be frustrated in every job you have at different points along the way. It's how you manage that frustration or how you let the frustration manage you is going to be the telling story in your career. I've never forgotten it.
Wow.
So that was my first AD. Great advice.
No doubt. So during this season, I would go and hang out with those folks in the above the east end zone. By the way, they're very sensitive. They're friends of mine, and their feelings are hurt because you went on Plyler's show a few weeks ago, and you didn't credit them for as being instrumental in your your success. But
they disappeared for a while.
What?
And then they came back. They disappeared for a little while.
Oh my gosh!
They came back.
Not according to them. According to them, they were there every game.
Yeah.
No, I told them.
It's great that they're back.
I told him. I said, actually, it's a good thing that he didn't mention you guys / us, because we don't want the secret to get out that we can sit there and drink beer and eat food and watch soccer for free.
No, we need to get a little more tailgate and more parking areas. I don't know where that's going to come, but it's Riggs is a special spot, and those are the fans that I would be with if I wasn't coaching the team. So you can relay that to them.
I will. But anyway, I would ask much more advanced soccer minds than I. It's like, do you think this team? Do you think they can win a championship? And I'm curious, in a coach's mind, in the middle of a season, do you think that way to where you ask yourself, can we win a championship? Or is it just, are you so locked into the next challenge that you don't even really think about it that much? How does that work in your mind?
Yeah, it's I would say more the latter than the former. Is that I've felt since 2014 that our program was at a place that we could win the national championship. And it was just one we were going to poke our head through. And I've got a very close personal friend and coaching mentor who lives over in England. His name's Bill Bessick, and he's worked at the highest levels of the game over there. And Bill's the one, when I have my disappointments at the end of the season, that I talk to him throughout the season, throughout the year, but at the end of the season, we have our call, and he continues to encourage me to keep doing the things that we're doing, because sooner or later, we're going to poke our heads through. And this year we poked our heads through. But I felt for, the last 7 or 8 years, we had enough quality in our team, and we were doing things in a way that was what we call, and what we've termed, uncommon, doing common things in an uncommon way, that sooner or later, the luck was going to fall, which it takes. I mean, I don't think that anybody really, well, maybe the people who have won national championships understand this, but how hard it actually is to do. 206 Division I soccer teams start the season, and it's not easy. But if you continue, you're consistent in what you're doing, and with and again, I think they're very similar functional assets to our program that football has. You look at my staff. Phil Jones has been here since the beginning. He's had offers to leave, just like, the football coordinators who left finally this year. And I think that Camilo Rodriguez has been a head coach at Southern Wesleyan, and he's now been here for 7 years. So the consistency in our staff, our director of operations, the other full-time person on our staff, Rob Thompson, worked for me at New Hampshire as an assistant, and then took my job there as the head coach when I went to Brown, and was there as a head coach for 23 years. So we have experience within our staff. And so that translates down into the academic support area, our trainer, our strength and conditioning people, the consistency that we've had in our program, and the belief that we are doing things the right way eventually led to us poking our heads through. So I've never doubted that we can win it. We just try to do the best with what we have from the one game to the next, and we focus on our performance in that game. And then we reevaluate that performance and try to correct some things and make it better for the next game.
You had 10 seniors, I think, who had endured a lot of disappointment in recent years. Do you think what pushed you guys through, other than, like you said, sometimes the bounces just don't go your way, but beyond that, that converting that disappointment into strength, that was maybe the key factor?
Yeah, strength and experience. I think that a lot of people ask me, when did you actually know? And I never actually knew until the clock went to zero. But we lost, we hadn't lost to Riggs in 30 some odd games. It was. And I don't think the seniors had ever lost to Riggs in their careers. And we lost back-to-back home games to Notre Dame and to Pittsburgh in the middle of the season. And the way the seniors handled that told me that this was going to be a special group and that they could handle anything, adversity, disappointment, and come back, because the next game we played away at Wake Forest, and we played a so-so first half. Oscar Ogren, our Herman Trophy finalist, made a mistake, gave him a penalty. We're down 1-0 at halftime, and we came out in the second half at Wake Forest after losing 2 games back-to-back at Riggs and down a goal, and played the best half of soccer that I've seen played at Clemson since I've been here, and won the game 2-1 on the road. And that's when I kind of knew this was a special group, and that there was nobody in college soccer, if they put their mind to it, that they couldn't beat. I didn't know that they would beat them, but that they couldn't beat.
The decision to charter out to Oregon was a big deal. Can you explain the sort of I don't want to say back and forth, but the decision, what went into that, and then the reason it was so big, as on the quick turnaround going back to North Carolina?
Yeah, well, I told the players, and then had to convince our administration, but I told the players that they were about to embark on the most difficult thing to do in sport, in any team sport, and that's to fly across country and win a game. And not only that it was compounded because they were playing the number 1 seed in the tournament, and they're playing them at home. And, that was going to be a huge, huge ask. And in order to do that, you have to prepare the team as best as you possibly can. And, you're playing that many games in a short period of time in a tournament, and rest is really, really important. And so, I felt it was a have to do, not a want to do, to charter out to Oregon. And not only because of, and you never try to do this, but sometimes coaches have to do this. You never try to look ahead, but the charter was more important, not necessarily getting out there, but if we were successful and we won the game, it was getting back and getting the rest for the players so that they could then leave 2 days later to travel to Cary to play 2 games, not 1 game in a weekend, to play 2 games in a weekend. We went through all kinds of permutations. Rob Thompson, our director of operations, was on the phone with charter companies, and we had talked to the University of New Hampshire, who had gone out to Oregon and lost narrowly, but they had chartered actually the Patriots plane to get out there. They had an alum or whatnot who was close with the Crafts, and they had gotten that, and they swore that was the way to go. We didn't quite get the Patriots plane, but I went up and was going through it with Graham and Kyle, and Dan Radakovich stepped into the meeting, and as Dan does, he said, okay, what's it going to cost? And is it something that we feel we need to do? And he said, well, I have, a discretionary athletic director's fund, and I'll put up half of it, Mike, but you've got to fundraise the other half. And you've got, a year to do it and to pay us back.
What?
And I said, deal. I said, let's do it. And, it was about $130,000 as opposed to $40,000 or $38,000 to send us out there. And I had no question that our alumni and support would support us in that endeavor. And, Dan found the way to yes. And that's what good leaders do. And so we were able to charter the plane. We got back, early in the morning on Sunday morning. We were able to rest that day and then train at home Monday and Tuesday before taking off on Wednesday and going to Cary. And I think that it showed, because I think our best performance, other than that Wake Forest performance that I just talked about, was in the final on Sunday. And, a lot of that is a credit to us being able to have the foresight to get out to Oregon the way that we did.
So the memories, I know, just for me, an independent observer of covering national championships, the 4, 5, 6, 7 hours that follow those championships after the final whistle are just indelible, priceless memories. Just, being able to just be witness to something like that. As the head man, can you give me the play-by-play of, you walk out of the locker room or whatever, you hop on the buses from that point until you get home at whatever you said, 3 a.m, the next day.
Yeah.
What, just the snapshots that you'll never forget, that'll be indelible for you.
Yeah. I mean, the bus ride home was surreal. But it started with me getting on the bus and looking at Raz, our trainer. And what many people do know, and some don't, is that we lost both of our strikers to one to a career-ending injury and one to a season-ending injury, ACL tear. And Mo continued to play, but I looked at Raz as soon as I get on the bus, and I said, when's Mo's surgery? Because we need him ready for next year. And I was already thinking about, the following year and getting the team to the best place that we possibly could. And Raz looked at me and he goes, can't you sit down and just enjoy this?
That's fantastic.
And I was like, and from that point forward, I kind of said, yeah, you know what, I can. And I did. And so did everybody else. And just the jokes and the laughter and the songs, and, soccer is a singing culture, and the songs that were sung about every individual on the bus. And it was, you wanted it to be a time warp, and you just didn't want it to ever stop. We got back here, and the band was here, and they had a fan celebration welcoming us here. And I still have pictures in my mind of George Marks walking off the bus carrying the trophy, and then Peter Stormay had called the owner of the SL Club to keep it open so that the guys could get something to eat, and those who were of age could have an adult beverage. And we went over and did that, and then I made my way home. I think I got home. I said 3. It was probably 2, and the girls were still up, and we just had a great family moment until about 5, and went to bed and woke up and looked outside and kind of pinched myself, and I said, holy mackerel, we did it.
The most powerful moment of all, and I hope I'm not catching you off guard here, was you snapping a picture of you celebrating with your late sister in California. Can you tell me about her? And I know a lot of people will never forget the sight of you snapping that photo with I guess it was a bottle of Jameson atop her tombstone.
Yeah, it was, we lost my sister to breast cancer at age 40. So that's going back about 20 years ago. And she and I were, we weren't Irish twins, but, Michael Ryan, Patrick Noonan, and Claire Francis Noonan, there's a little bit of Irish in us. And, her husband, made sure that it was a proper Irish wake, and we drank some Jamesons, at her funeral. And I just had the opportunity to be out in California the following week, and it was just time for me to spend with her.
Well, Mike, you said you had an hour. I was going to get into the name, image, likeness, and all that stuff, but that might take another hour. That might be a whole podcast by itself. So,
yeah, it's Larry. I appreciate all you do and the coverage that you give. All of our sports here, and it's really fun just to sit down. You're a good friend, but also a great journalist. So, thanks for the time today.
Hey, man, I really appreciate that, and safe travels to you. Very happy for you and Deb and the girls. Just tremendous time.
All right, my man. Thank you.
Awesome stuff there from Coach Noonan. Really need to have him on again because there were a number of things that I had written down to talk about. So we'll have to have him back on. Thanks so much to our very loyal sponsors for their support of the podcast. Most of all, thanks to all of you for hitting play. Really appreciate it. Cheers.